The desert wind howled, kicking up dust that stung my eyes. But I couldn't look away from him. His silhouette stood against the fading sun, all sharp edges and quiet intensity, like he was carved from the same wild earth we were parked on. I was 22, running from a life I didn't understand. And there he was, Eli, 24, a stranger who felt like a secret I'd always known. We'd met 3 days ago at a gas station in Nevada, where I was counting change for a stale coffee, and he was leaning against his beat-up RV, flicking a lighter like it was a nervous tick. Something about his crooked smile and the way his green eyes caught mine made me say yes when he offered me a ride. Now, here we were, parked in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, with nothing but sand, stars, and the hum of something unspoken between us. The RV's tiny shower was his pride and joy, a makeshift thing he'd rigged up himself. "You gotta see this," Eli said, his voice low, almost daring me. He pushed open the creaky door, and steam spilled out, curling in the cool evening air. I hesitated, my heart thudding. I wasn't naive, I knew what crossing that threshold might mean. But his hand grazed mine, warm and deliberate, and before I could think, he pulled me inside. The door clicked shut behind us, the fogged-up windows sealing us in a world of our own. "I'm Sam, by the way. Samuel Carter, though no one's called me that since I left Ohio 6 months ago, fleeing a family that loved me but didn't know me. I'd been running ever since, hitching rides across the country, trying to outrun the truth I'd buried deep. I was gay, and I was terrified of what that meant." Eli Thuff was different. He didn't ask questions about my past, didn't push me to explain the shadows in my eyes. He just drove, sang off-key to old country songs, and looked at me like I was someone worth seeing. Inside the RV, the air was thick with steam and tension. The shower was a cramped corner of chipped tile and a flickering bulb. But to Eli, it was a masterpiece. "Took me 3 weeks to get this thing working," he said, his voice echoing off the walls. His leather jacket was slung over a chair, and his white t-shirt clung to his skin, damp from the heat. I stood there, frozen, my sneakers squeaking on the wet floor, my pulse racing as he stepped closer. "You're shaking," he said, not mocking, just noticing. His hand hovered near my arm, like he was waiting for permission. I didn't know how to give it. Growing up, I'd been taught that feelings like this were wrong, a sin I'd burned for. But standing there, inches from Eli, with his breath warm on my cheek, I didn't feel wrong. I felt alive. "Sam," he whispered, and my name in his voice was a spark in the dark. "You don't have to hide here." His fingers brushed my wrist, and I didn't pull away. The world outside the desert, the judgment, the fear faded. It was just us, the hum of the RV's generator, and the truth I'd been running from my whole life. But then, a sharp knock on the RV door shattered the moment. "Eli, you in there?" A voice called, rough and impatient. Eli's face tightened, his hand dropping from mine. "Stay here," he muttered, unlocking the door and stepping outside. I caught a glimpse of a man tall, broad-shouldered, with a scowl that didn't belong in this quiet desert night. I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. Who was that? Why did Eli look so tense? The shower steam was fading, but the heat in my chest wasn't. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew one thing. Eli wasn't just a drifter offering me a ride. He was carrying secrets heavier than the RV we were standing in. As voices argued outside, I sank to the floor, my back against the damp wall. 3 days with Eli, and I was already in too deep. I didn't know his story, but I wanted to. I wanted to know why his hands shook when he thought I wasn't looking, why he kept a locked box under the driver's seat, why he looked at me like I was both his salvation and his ruin. The desert stretched endless outside, But inside this RV, something was starting a story I wasn't sure I was ready for, but one I couldn't walk away from. The voices outside grew louder, sharp words cutting through the thin RV walls. I couldn't make out everything, but the stranger's tone was laced with anger, and Eli's responses were clipped, defensive. My fingers gripped the edge of the bench, the damp air clinging to my skin as I strained to listen. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't here for a friendly chat. Eli slipped back inside, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. "Sorry about that," he muttered, running a hand through his blonde hair. "Just someone I used to know." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask not yet. But the way his shoulders stayed rigid told me this wasn't over. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, but it was a lie, and we both knew it. He busied himself with a towel, wiping down the fogged mirror, but his movements were jerky, like he was trying to shake off whatever had just happened. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap that had opened between us, but the moment felt fragile, like stepping on cracked ice. Instead, I sat on the narrow bench, watching him. Eli was a puzzle equal parts confidence and caution, like he was always one step away from bolting. Last night, over a campfire, he'd told me he'd been on the road for 2 years, chasing freedom, running from something he wouldn't name. "The road's honest," he'd said, staring into the flames. "It doesn't judge you." I'd nodded, because I got it. I was running too from a father who'd called my feelings unnatural, from a small town that felt like a cage. Now, in the RV's dim light, Eli finally looked at me. "You ever feel like you're carrying something too heavy to put down?" he asked. His voice was raw, like the words had been clawing at him for years. I swallowed hard. "Yeah. All the time." He stepped closer, the space between us shrinking again. "What's your weight, Sam?" he asked, and it wasn't just a question, it was a challenge. "Tell me your truth," he was saying. "Trust me with it." I took a breath, the words catching in my throat. "I'm gay," I said, the first time I'd ever said it out loud. The confession felt like shedding skin, like I was raw and exposed but finally free. "And where I'm from, that's not okay." So I left. Eli didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He just nodded, like he'd known all along. "I'm bi," he said simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "And I've been running from people who think that's a choice I can just unmake." The air between us shifted, heavier now, but not suffocating. It was like we'd both laid down a piece of our armor, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone. But before I could say anything, the RV's door rattled again, and Eli's face darkened. "Stay here," he said again, sharper this time. He stepped outside, and I heard the same voice from before, now laced with a threat. "You can't keep dodging me, Eli. You owe me." I crept to the window, peering through the fogged glass. The man was older, maybe mid-30s, with a shaved head and a leather vest that screamed trouble. He towered over Eli, his hands balled into fists. Eli stood his ground, but his body language was all wrong, tense, like he was bracing for a fight he didn't want. I didn't know what Eli owed this guy, but it wasn't money. It was something deeper, something that made Eli's hands shake as he gestured toward the desert. The man laughed, cold and mocking, and then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the campground. When Eli came back inside, he didn't meet my eyes. "We're leaving," he said, grabbing his keys. "Tonight." "Eli, what's going on?" I pressed, standing now, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "Who was that guy?" He froze, his hand on the driver's seat. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he turned. His eyes haunted. His name's Caleb. And he's someone I can't outrun. The RV's engine roared to life, cutting through the desert's eerie silence. Eli drove with one hand on the wheel, the other clenched into a fist on his thigh. I sat in the passenger seat, the locked box under my feet vibrating with every bump in the road. I wanted to ask about Caleb, about the debt Eli owed, but the set of his jaw told me now wasn't the time. We drove for hours, the headlights carving a path through the dark. The desert stretched endless around us, a sea of sand and secrets. I stole glances at Eli, his face lit by the dashboard's glow. He was beautiful in a way that hurt sharp cheekbones, eyes that held 1,000 stories, and a mouth that curved like it was made for secrets and smiles. But right now, there were no smiles. Just tension, thick and heavy. Where are we going? I finally asked, my voice soft against the engine's hum. Arizona, he said without looking at me. There's a place I know. Safe. Safe. The word hung between us, fragile and loaded. I didn't know what Eli was running from, but I knew it wasn't just Caleb. There was something bigger, something that made him check the rearview mirror every few minutes, like he expected trouble to come barreling out of the dark. I leaned back, my mind replaying the moment in the shower. His touch, his voice, the way he'd said my name like it mattered. I'd spent my whole life hiding, but with Eli, I felt seen. And that scared me as much as it thrilled me. Around 2 a.m., we pulled into a deserted rest stop. Eli cut the engine, and the silence was deafening. He turned to me, his eyes softer now, but still guarded. You didn't sign up for this, he said. You can leave, Sam. I won't stop you. I shook my head. I'm not going anywhere. The words came out fiercer than I meant, but they were true. I'd been running alone for too long. Whatever Eli was facing, I wanted to face it with him. He looked at me for a long moment, then reached out, his hand resting on mine. His touch was warm, grounding. You're braver than you think, he said, and I felt my cheeks burn. We slept in the RV that night, me on the bench, him on the floor. The locked box stayed under the driver's seat, a silent reminder of the secrets between us. When I woke at dawn, Eli was already up, making coffee on a tiny stove. The smell filled the RV, warm and familiar, like a promise of something normal. But normal was a lie. As we ate breakfast, Eli told me about Caleb. He was my brother's friend, he said, his voice low. My older brother, Jake. They ran together, did things I didn't ask about. Drugs, maybe worse. Jake died 2 years ago overdose. Caleb thinks I owe him for Jake's mistakes. I listened, my heart sinking. What does he want from you? I asked. Eli's eyes darkened. Everything. The Arizona sun was brutal, baking the RV as we rolled into a small town called Dustville. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and outsiders like us stuck out like sore thumbs. Eli parked behind an abandoned gas station, hidden from the main road. We'll lay low here, he said, but his eyes kept scanning the horizon. I wanted to ask about the locked box, about Jake, about what everything meant. But Eli was already moving, checking the RV's tires, the water tank, anything to keep busy. I followed him outside, the heat hitting me like a wall. Eli, I said, stepping closer. Talk to me. He stopped, his shoulders slumping. I don't want you caught in this, Sam, he said. Caleb's not just some guy. He's dangerous. And he knows where to find me. Then why run? I asked, frustration bubbling up. Why not face him? Eli laughed. A bitter sound. You don't face someone like Caleb. You survive him. That night, we sat on the RV's roof, watching the stars. Eli's knee brushed mine, and I didn't move away. I used to dream about this, he said, his voice soft. Just being free. No debts. No past. Just me and someone who gets it. My heart ached at his words. I get it, I said, and I meant it. I leaned closer, and he didn't pull away. Our fingers intertwined, and for a moment, the world felt right. But the next morning, trouble found us. A black truck pulled up to the gas station, and Caleb stepped out, his eyes locked on the RV. Eli grabbed my arm, pulling me inside. Stay down, he hissed, locking the door. Caleb's voice boomed outside. I know you're in there, Eli. You can't hide forever. My pulse raced as Eli opened the locked box, pulling out a stack of cash and a photo of a man who looked like him, Jake. I realized. This is what he wants, Eli whispered. Jake's last deal. I took it to keep it out of Caleb's hands. I stared at the cash, my stomach twisting. What happens if he gets it? I asked. Eli's face was grim. He'll never stop. Caleb didn't leave. He circled the RV like a vulture, his boots crunching on the gravel. Eli clutched the cash, his knuckles white. We need to move, he said, but his voice shook. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I grabbed his hand. We'll figure this out, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Together. Eli looked at me, and something softened in his expression. You don't have to do this, Sam. I know, I said, but I want to. We waited until nightfall, the RV's lights off, our breaths shallow. Caleb's truck was still there, parked under a streetlight. Eli had a plan: drive fast, lose him in the desert. But as we climbed into the front seats, headlights flared behind us. Caleb was moving. The chase was relentless. Eli floored the gas, the RV rattling as we tore through the desert. Caleb's truck stayed close, its engine roaring. I gripped the dashboard, my heart in my throat. He's not going to stop, Eli muttered, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Then we make him, I said, an idea forming. There's a canyon up ahead. Narrow. We can lose him there. Eli nodded, his jaw set. The RV swerved into the canyon, tires screeching. Caleb followed, but the tight turn slowed him down. For a moment, I thought we'd made it. Then a gunshot cracked through the night, and the RV's back window shattered. Get down, Eli shouted, pushing me to the floor. The RV lurched, and I realized he was driving blind, one hand on the wheel, the other shielding me. My heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the way he protected me, like I was worth saving. We made it out of the canyon, Caleb's truck nowhere in sight. Eli pulled over, his hands shaking as he turned off the engine. You okay? He asked, his voice raw. I nodded, my throat tight. You? He didn't answer, just pulled me into a hug. His heart was racing against mine, and I realized I wasn't just falling for him, I was already gone. We didn't sleep that night. Eli kept watch, his eyes scanning the dark, while I sat beside him, the cash hidden under the seat. The photo of Jake was on the dashboard now, a reminder of the weight Eli carried. He was my hero, Eli said, his voice barely audible. But he broke me, too. I reached for his hand, and he let me. You're not him, I said. You're better. Eli's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw hope there. You make me want to be, he said. We drove at dawn, heading for California. Eli said he knew someone there, a friend who could help us disappear. But I wasn't sure I wanted to disappear anymore. With Eli, I felt like I could finally be myself. No running, no hiding. The road was quiet, but the tension lingered. We stopped at a diner, the kind with sticky tables and coffee that tasted like regret. Eli smiled for the first time in days, and it felt like a victory. You ever think about settling down? He asked, stirring his coffee. I laughed, nervous. With who? You. He didn't laugh. Maybe. My heart skipped. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed a number I didn't know. The message was simple. I found you. My blood ran cold. Caleb. Eli saw my face and grabbed the phone. His expression hardened as he read the text. We need to end this, he said. No more running. I nodded, fear and resolve mixing in my chest. What's the plan? Eli leaned closer, his voice low. We give him what he wants, but on our terms. Eli's plan was risky, but it was all we had. We'd meet Caleb in an empty lot outside San Diego, hand over the cash, and walk away. He won't let it go that easy, I said, my stomach twisting. I know, Eli said. That's why we're not giving him everything. He showed me the box half the cash was gone, replaced with paper. If he wants the rest, he'll have to deal with the cops, Eli said. I'm done running. We reached the lot at dusk, the sky bleeding red. Caleb was already there, leaning against his truck, a smirk on his face. You got my money, he called as we stepped out. Eli held up the box. Right here. Let's make this quick. Caleb's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. I stayed by the RV, my heart pounding. Eli walked forward, every step deliberate. He handed over the box, and Caleb opened it, his smirk fading as he saw the paper. You think I'm stupid? Caleb snarled, pulling a gun. I froze, but Eli didn't flinch. Cops are already on their way, he said calmly. You take that and run, or you're done. Caleb hesitated, his grip on the gun tightening. For a moment, I thought he'd shoot. Then sirens wailed in the distance, and Caleb cursed, grabbing the box and sprinting to his truck. He peeled out, dust clouding the air. Eli turned to me, his face pale but relieved. It's over, he said, pulling me into his arms. I held him tight, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through. We didn't stay in San Diego. The RV carried us north, toward Oregon, where the air was cooler and the world felt softer. Eli was different now, lighter, like he'd finally put down Jake's ghost. The locked box was gone, buried in the desert, and with it, Caleb's hold on him. One night, parked by a quiet lake, Eli took my hand. I meant what I said, he told me, his voice steady. About settling down. With you. I smiled, my heart full. I'm not running anymore, I said. Not from you. Not from me. We kissed under the stars, the RV's shower humming in the background, a reminder of where it all began. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is. But it was ours, a love carved from the road, from secrets shared and battles fought together. Years later, we'd tell our story to others, two lost boys who found each other in a desert, who faced fear and came out stronger. The RV was long gone, but the memory of that first night, when Eli pulled me into the shower and locked the fog door, stayed with us. It was the moment we stopped running and started living.